Modern Warfare 2 2009 is often remembered as having incredibly unbalanced but fun multiplayer. However, the campaign is also a force to be reckoned with. I would argue that MW2's campaign is just as memorable as its multiplayer. And for me personally, it's because it paid attention to my favorite of the five senses: sound. What comes to mind for me are the missions focusing on Russia's invasion of the United States. This story arc is kicked off with a cutscene showing every air defender's worst nightmare. The enemy has evaded detection of early warning systems, and they are not on your doorstep, but already inside your house. I think the following piece of the cutscene shows it best.
Sierra Delta, we may have a minor ACS fault here. Do you have anything on your scope? Sierra Delta, repeat.
I'm looking at fighter jets over I-95! How the hell did they get through?
While the visuals explain to the viewer what's happening, the horror in the voice of Sierra Delta and the air raid sirens in the background do a much better job of selling just how bad the situation is. When I played the game as a young teenager, what stuck with me was the delivery of just absolute perfection from the voice actor. The Russian Federation is invading, and the United States has been caught flat-footed. The mission starts with you rolling in on a Humvee in a northeastern Virginia suburb. Your vehicle isn't moving fast, so maybe things aren't as desperate as Sierra Delta claimed. But then you notice Russian paratroopers dropping off in the distance, the continuous air raid siren in the background, and hitting the hardest once again, the comms, specifically this part. Again, the voice actor here kills it in selling the desperation with, thus not requiring you to understand the military jargon to know that things are not good. Immediately after, a BTR rolls right in front of you, cutting you off from your objective, forcing your unit to duck and cover behind houses to escape and continue your objective of rescuing a high-value individual codenamed Raptor, with no air support.
Overlord, this is Hunter 2-1 requesting air support. Over.
Hunter 2-1, all air support is already engaged.
Sarge, did HQ just tell us to go F ourselves?
Pretty much, Corporal.
You are not fighting between military installations, bunkers, or even hills. Strategic positions are now restaurants and gas stations. Your unit is taking several enemies out of the fight, but there seems to be endless waves of them. And just when you thought you caught a break, a fighter jet decides to end your fun by bombing your strategic restaurant, forcing you to take shelter inside of a trademark-friendly Burger King. You complete your mission, and then you're off to Arcadia to evac some civilians, which then turns into taking out some anti-aircraft guns because everything is going wrong and new plans must be made and executed on the fly. Just saying, decentralized command is always the way to go. This mission is the most forgettable of the story thread, but it still underscores that the United States is in trouble. While you don't see more paratroopers coming in, the ones on the ground are in strategic positions, making them harder to eliminate. You're having to fight from house to house and street to street. When you consider how much ground you cover in this mission, it's sobering when you realize that situations like this are likely happening all across the US in this universe. A slow, grinding battle to retake even the smallest of towns. And to cap it all off, your last-minute objective to save another HVI is failed, as by the time you arrived, he's already dead. Now, this is a little murky as it is implied he died under suspicious circumstances, but still, it's a failure at the end to leave a bitter taste in your mouth. And then, we get to the apex, the most immersive missions in Modern Warfare 2 that are covered by a desperate atmosphere, the Battle of Washington, D.C. Chilling, isn't it? In 2009, I played this on an Xbox 360, and seeing this randomly show up on your TV unprompted almost makes you think it's real for a second. Be aware of your surroundings. Remain alert. In conjunction with the more rapid tones of the broadcast, scares you a bit. Then the mission starts. You're relieved because the emergency was not in real life, but your mood immediately shifts to somber because of what you see and hear. Screams and mumblings of wounded soldiers, some of which won't make it, constant radio chatter, calling out airstrike targets and relaying precarious situations, and to top it all off, the melancholy score of Hans Zimmer playing in the background. Your mission here is to protect the evac sites which are currently tasked with getting civilians out of the combat zone. The radio chatter throughout this mission is disheartening to say the least. Sites having to be abandoned because the situation is untenable, positions being overrun, several callouts of broken arrow, broken arrow. Considering how many times the phrase broken arrow was said, I looked it up after I finished playing this mission back in 2009. In this context, broken arrow is communicated when your position is about to be overrun and you request all available air support to attack enemy positions, even if it's right next to your own. You actually hear the phrase broken arrow in the first mission, right before the BTR fires on you. Given this, it is likely that many US positions are making this call out throughout the conflict due to the surprise nature of the Russian attack, hence why air support is unavailable to your unit. However, this likely means that many of these broken arrow calls are going unanswered due to the lack of available air assets, and thus some of these positions likely do get overrun, with the soldiers and possibly civilians being killed as a result. There is one part in the Battle of DC where you are assisting the Washington Monument evac site. Apparently there's some audio that plays if you fail to defend the site fast enough, and the situation, well, just listen for yourself.
All call signs be advised. We have civilians taking a march to defend the evac site, but they're totally untrained. We're on the verge of being overrun. We need help now. This is the Whiskey Mike evac site. Combat personnel are mostly dead. We're below 10% combat effectiveness. Request additional fire support. Over. Whiskey Mike evac site to all call signs. Enemy is bounding rapidly on our position. We're hanging on by a thread here. Over. All call signs be advised. Whiskey Mike evac site is combat ineffective. We're totally pinned down. They're coming in at any second now.
When I first heard those recordings a few years ago, I honestly had a hard time sleeping that night. Hearing the commanding officer being overwhelmed by fear as the Russians got closer, and the screaming of the civilians in the background, knowing what's about to happen to them, it's all quite disturbing. Once you take out the enemies pounding the evac site, you try to provide some air support of your own before getting shot down. Now suddenly, you're the one who's about to be overrun, and there's no way out. From there, the game briefly goes full-on Call of Duty. A Deus Ex Machina arrives in the form of a nuke turned EMP launched by a crazy former SAS chap in Russia. Russians got us outnumbered, shit's falling from the sky.
We're totally... Get it, Pip Corporal.
And then the game regains its footing and the arc hits its turning point. The enemies, now being relieved of their advantage in mechanized armor, go from being the hunters to the hunted, as you sweep the darkened streets, navigating your way to Callsign Whiskey Hotel, the White House. For some unspeakable reason,
There's still power in the White House!
so you go to retake the White House, and apparently Central Command doesn't like taking chances, so they already ordered air units to flatten all of DC.
Down! Get the door! Done! Sarge, are you reading this? That's where we gotta go! Now get the door!
So you retake the White House, pop some flares, maybe some champagne, bam, crisis averted. And you see other green flares in the distance at other critical buildings to show that the US is able to recover and push the Russians out of DC, thus ending one of the greatest story arcs in an FPS game, or at least certainly a Call of Duty game. In hindsight, I'm a little ambivalent about the ending here. As a player, it's euphoric, because you see the US military go from being caught by surprise to showing that they can still fight back. From a storytelling perspective, the turnaround from "we are in danger of being overrun" to just retaking all of DC is arguably rushed. The full story almost feels like it should have been your unit gets overrun and eliminated after you crash your helicopter, and then forces from less affected parts of the country have to come in and retake everything. But for a 6 to 8 hour campaign storyline following 2 different squads, what we have is good enough. Especially considering the use of an EMP, something that hasn't happened in Warfare yet, but could feasibly occur. Everything past that point just automatically becomes plausible in my opinion. So yeah, Modern Warfare 2 2009 just hits different, and is an excellent lesson in how those who create media can use something as simple as background radio chatter to immerse the viewer and set the tone. When I was a kid, I watched the Home Alone movies and was always afraid that my house would be broken into, so I stayed up late at night to be quote-unquote ready. Thankfully, I toned down my paranoia by the time I played Modern Warfare 2, but believe me, it still got me thinking about what would happen if the game's events were to occur for real. Even 15 years after I've played this game, I occasionally have nightmares about sudden invasion on US soil. Honestly, it's almost pathetic to say out loud, but Modern Warfare 2 might be the closest concept many young Americans have as to what it's like to be invaded. The shock, the franticness, and most importantly, the desperation conveyed by voice actors is hopefully the closest they'll ever have to experience of the United States being invaded by a foreign power. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.